Hello everyone, and I have Dr. Ayush Agarwal with us. He is a proud Damsonian and has secured Rank-3 in November AIIMS 2019. Heartiest congratulations, Ayush.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very, very, very well done. And कैसा लग रहा है?
It's a dream come true, and it's an unbelievable moment. I'm really thinking the hard work has paid off, and
Yes.
paid off to such an extent I didn't even dreamt of.
Yes, and yes, he's a very, very hardworking student. I have known him for a long time now. Ayush has been with us right from foundation years to TND, and now coming this far, I know he's worked really hard. Right, Ayush. So, सबसे पहले हम इससे शुरू करते हैं, Ayush, that AIIMS is an institute that everyone wants to get into, and yes, top ranks. So, what do you think is the most important ingredient to sort of getting here? Hard work, yes, but let's be a little elaborate about it.
I'll talk from a perspective of a current intern who is giving his November AIIMS. So the main thing during internship is persistence despite all odds, and remaining in a good and a positive company that stimulates you rather than depresses you, and trying to find a positive thing in everything, and being aware throughout your internship, because most of the questions in AIIMS were practical questions which could be solved if you do internship regularly on a day-to-day basis with an aware mind. So persistence and being selective in that at this point of time we have abundance of resources.
Yes,
there are so many resources.
That's very, very important actually.
And at one point of time we become confused that which resource to follow and which not to follow. So that is an important thing, that have a belief in a source and stick to that source and revise it multiple times. Yes,
that's absolutely correct. I think multiple revisions is more important. So Ayush, how would you rate DAMS notes? And since you've been a foundation student with us and done the classroom, how helpful do you think were those for your exams?
DAMS notes were very helpful, particularly in subjects like physiology and in obs gynae for sure, and radiology and medicine. They were really good, and they were my primary source in many subjects, and it's their revision that actually helped me build up my knowledge matter based on those notes. So, and they were very handy in the last few months when we have so much to revise, 19 subjects and hardly 2-3 months. So notes are the primary source of revision.
Yes, so I would actually ask you this because all the exams are aage aa rahe hain, and there are students who are looking up to it, and so this is what I really want you to first stress on, because that's what students really want to know. What did you do as a Rank-3 in Central Institute towards the exam or close to the exam? What were you putting your energy on?
I first analyzed the last 5-6 year papers and saw the pattern of questions. First I highlighted what my weak points were, and first stressed on that, because I had paucity of time, so it was not first possible for me to complete the whole course.
Yes.
So first I stressed on my weak points and made sure those points were covered. I did my last 10 year papers quite thoroughly, last 6 years papers in fact, not 10, and many questions were direct repeats in one form or another. So those were those things that you can't miss on, because everybody else would be doing them right. Now the next thing is battling the new questions, which is new for everyone else. So that comes from your notes and your knowledge based on your notes. So one thing was being aware of what the latest trends were, if there were any updates, so that those updates are not missed. And in the last 3 or 4 days, I did a full course revision of the whole course, because my SRs were very gracious enough to grant me CLs, and that really helped, a full course revision, so that everything is in the back of the mind, so that at the time of the exam I have only 30 to 40 seconds.
Yes.
So that takes less time to process if I have those algorithms in mind when I read a question.
Right, and especially at this time, I think this is the time when the notes is very, very important. Right, and since we're talking about notes and how you were able to do multiple revisions from it, I would like to ask you, how do you think was sitting in a class and clearing concepts and making your own set of hand notes and then reading from standard textbooks during your professional years?
They were quite helpful, because first of all, offline classes are always helpful because they are kind of an external simulator and an external force that keeps you going, because during the professional exams at many times we feel lazy, and it's not possible for us, to complete that whole course in a limited time, because at the end time is always short.
Yes, that's true.
So notes are really handy, and making your own notes and then adding up to it, you know that this thing is written at this page. So at the end when you're confused, it's like, I have read this, it was somewhere there. So you can reach up to a point. Only one or two revisions are more required to, get to that point.
Right.
Because in most of the questions, we are able to eliminate two options. Two options are left. And getting to those two options is where the notes help.
Yeah. Okay. And Ayush, I would also like to say, like, one part of the preparation is your content. Yes. And these days, how important do you think it is to sort of have a concise content rather than have abundance of material which you're not able to sort of manage? Because, medical science is too vast. So there is no end to more and more. Right?
So, ma'am, in this point, we need to have a very fine balance between restriction and the width.
Okay.
During the formative years, I think width is important.
Yes, that's
because
right.
You need to study books, you need to increase your knowledge so
and concepts. So that you can apply those concepts. Yes.
Because when you sit in an OPD and see patients, the patients are not going to come to you that, I was from this section of notes, so you need to diagnose for me or that. So it's all applicative. You need to become a doctor also, and you need to clear PG also. So in the formative years, you should read your books, you should read your notes, and while adding points to your notes, you should make sure that you don't add so many points to the notes that they become difficult to revise in the end.
That's true.
That is really important, because I did one of these mistakes in one of my subjects, and that was not good. So read the books, and what you can do is highlight important sections in those books with a highlighter, so that during your internship, you know that is section mein I need to read this, and this is enough. So this is a good point which one of my seniors told me, that at the end towards the prof, after the prof, when you're preparing for practicals, you have the whole grasp of the course.
Right.
So if you are towards PG and you have decided that you have to do Indian PG, sit for the practicals, take a highlighter with you, and highlight those important sections or important lines you think you can come in the exam, and you can revise in the internship.
Right.
That would be quite a perfect balance. Now in the internship, you need to restrict yourself.
Yeah.
What I did was, I kept 3 sources. I made a list of all the subjects. I made 3 lists. One was of the notes. So every time I completed a subject, I used to tick mark that I have completed the notes.
Okay.
Second was the TND. The TND is quite high.
I was going to come to it. No, you speak. It's good that you speak.
Okay. So second was TND. Revising TND was also good, because first of all, the TND subjects, the TND questions, they are they include the previous year repeats, and they include the new questions, and it shifts our mind from a point of view of receiving into somewhat applicative phase also.
Yes.
And it contains updates also. So TND notes are very important.
And especially, I think they give you one limited time that you read your theory in this time, and then you test yourself.
Exactly. And towards the end, even if I had limited time in one of the subjects or 2 other subjects, I used to revise those TND notes, because TND used to be a crux of all the things that are important.
So true. And that is the second part of the exam preparation. So one is your content. The second is the MCQ practice. Right? So for which he said were you regular with the TNDs?
Yes, ma'am. I was quite regular with the TNDs.
Right.
In the sense, I had made a schedule and followed TNDs strictly. Even if I didn't prepare, I used to make sure.
I was going to ask you this, because sometimes the other people would maybe come up to you and ask you, like, okay, is it okay to follow my own schedule and not go as per the schedule of the TND batch? So how good or bad, I will take your perspective on it, is that?
It depends on you. For example, in MAMC, I tried to make my own schedule because of the fact that we had 2 or 3 spans of posting which were very heavy. So during those times, it was really not possible, to attend those TNDs.
Right.
So what I did was, I used to schedule my short subjects in the heavy postings, and used to space my big subjects in the short postings, so that I could effectively manage it.
Yes, and with the multiple batch schedule, it is always possible to come and give it with another batch as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, and the post TND usually the test and discussion and the discussion part of it, how high yielding do you think that is?
The discussion was very high.
Because sometimes when you apply, you know the content, but on application you go on a different zone. And
exactly, ma'am. it was very important to give the test before the discussion. And DAMS has this great great thing that it has an app, and the TNDs are available in the app. So even during the postings, you can give those tests and attend the discussions. The important point about discussions are two things. First of all, in fact, three things. First of all, you get to know whether the way you are applying your knowledge, is it correct or not? Because only after giving a question and getting it wrong can you understand where you went wrong in that question.
Precisely, yes.
Second thing is the discussion part, which is the crux of everything. And third is for the revision sake, because the revision of updates is always important.
That's right. Okay, and then, I'll come to, since we're talking about MCQ practice and exam skill, you've given the CBTs as well, right? And he secured a rank 3 in one and rank 5 in the other. So how important or reliable do you think the paper pattern was, and how important that rank was once you look back now?
The paper pattern, the CBTs were very important. First of all, in the fact that I always used to solve MCQs, in my space, in my reading room, and everything was, conducive to me. So I could, have a sip of coffee or something like that while solving MCQs.
That's right.
And now in a CBT, I had to go to a center, and the conditions were different. I had those 3 hours, and there was a huge crowd. When I entered into a CBT, I was like, there's so much competition. So, I got into a competitive mode after attending the CBT one.
Right.
Secondly, the time management and the other things come into play when you give an actual test in a proper exam simulated environment. And that is quite important because in the first CBT, I was really short on time. I messed up my time management. And in the second CBT, I tried to improve. And in the AIIMS exam, I tried to improve it further. So time management was really important because one of my seniors said that all you prepare is 10%. And those 3 hours of exam are 90%. And if you mess up anything in those 90%, that is going to cost you a lot.
That's so true. Right. So the third part of the preparation after the MCQ skill is revision. So now for people listening out to you, how would you suggest, or what was your revision pattern, and how would you suggest, your juniors probably who are listening to you and to plan their revisions?
Particularly from the AIIMS point of view, ma'am, or from the general?
Whatever. Maybe first general and then typically for AIIMS. We'll come to specifically for AIIMS as well.
For the general pattern, you need to analyze which exam you are focusing on. Best thing would be, for example, you need to make a scheduled timeline that you have this exam these many days before the exam, and you need to complete this subject in this much amount of time.
Okay.
Plus minus 1-2 hours will be good enough as a buffer zone. Now in those hours, you need to plan first of all the previous year questions, secondly your notes, and at the last the TND. That was my strategy which I used. The TND and theory can be back and forth depending on how high the TND is. So going through the first previous year questions in the first will give a pattern and idea that during reading theory you have to focus on these many points. And this section is much high yield, so I need to focus on this section well. Maybe it's not in your notes. Maybe it's in your notes, but you don't understand it well. So you need to read it re-emphasize it. So reading the questions is very, very important, and where the majority of the population fails. Second, reading theory in a fast manner. Fastness is really good and really important. After reading and after in the first revision, you'll realize that you don't know anything, but don't slow your speed on that. If you think you don't know, keep 1 or 2 hours in the morning the next day for the revision, so that you have this mental satisfaction that you are revising it the next day, and it's really important. Keeping those 1 hour the next day for the past 8 hours, that really helps. And third thing is giving that revising through the TND fast. Maybe for some discussions you know what the answer is, so you can skip through it, because time is the essence for PG preparation.
Right. And now, I would also want to ask you, Ayush, about, we have like multiple resources. For example, there's an exclusive club on the Facebook where teachers interact and give you updates and sort of answer your queries. And then there's eMedicos, which has a lot of EQ series or Medicine Unplugged series. So how useful do you think with these resources, and what part could you utilize it?
I try to utilize most of it. The DAMS club was really good, especially the updates by Surya sir, and the small updates which kept on creeping. Secondly, the eMedicos app. In the eMedicos app, the Harrison module. I did my electrolyte section from that, and electrolytes is really important in all the exams. And there were some things, for example, the DAMS capsule, especially AIIMS capsule, especially of pathology, I was able to do. It was really high yield for the concept building. E-medicals per ma'am, there were some, videos regarding some questions, and they used to cover one or two questions in a short span of time. So maybe when you are not, when you are feeling lazy and you are feeling tired and you don't want to study theory, browsing through the videos is quite a good option.
Yes, especially if they are short videos, because they don't take up your time, and you could do them. All right, and now coming to this year's AIIMS pattern, and you had a lot of image-based questions this time. So did you do the DVT, Ayush?
Yes, ma'am, I did the DVT.
And do you think it was useful for the exam?
Yes, ma'am, DVT was quite useful.
Okay. And now coming to the AIIMS exam itself, what would you comment upon the type of the exam or the questions that you had, and something that you want to comment on, any subject or anything like that?
AIIMS exam was different from the previous exams in a lot of ways. First of all, as expected, the single best answers were around 150.
Okay.
And we had expected that 50 questions would be, different answers.
That's right.
In the 150 questions, anatomy was a huge chunk. And they were focusing, as always, they have focused on the real cadaveric images.
Yes, and not the
netters or the other images.
Or those
images.
Yes.
But the point we need to focus is on that you don't need to go searching for these real images, because it's hard to get these, and anyone who has a good theoretical background and who has gone through the BDC or Gray's anatomy images can easily solve them. So you don't need to worry about them, but you need to be thorough with the images, because anatomy is mainly about orientation.
Yes, so a lot of about, but the image-based question is that if you know your theory content well, you can, sort of reach onto the answer.
In PSM, the biostats portion was quite less. Physio was good, biochem was good. Everything else was good. There were some confusing options, but those could be easily cracked upon if you had the presence of mind.
Okay.
So a good night's sleep was really important for the exam.
Yes.
And secondly, time management. Time management was required because in some of the sections the review option is not there.
Right.
Particularly in the assertion and reason and in the multiple option correct.
Okay.
So those couldn't be reviewed. You couldn't mark some questions for review.
Okay.
What you could do was you could write them in a piece of paper and you could review, but that doesn't quite happen if you're not prepared for it.
That's right.
So that was good, and it was a good paper. They had really tried hard. They made a good paper.
Right. Okay, Ayush. And now, finally, if you summarize, if somebody wants to perform as well as you, he secured rank 3 in AIIMS, what would your suggestion be to them to prepare for the AIIMS exam?
Okay. So, my preparation would be to keep it simple. You need to take a piece of paper and you need to take, 4 columns in that. First, write all the subjects. Second, in the first column, you write the notes. The second will be the AIIMS previous year questions.
Okay.
The third will be the TND, and the fourth will be the updates or any other special points you need to, focus on.
Okay.
So with every subject, these 4 columns should be enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So MCQ practice for that, you can do it subject-wise, provided there's time, or you can focus on mocks and grant tests, because towards the end, I used to give grant tests every week.
That's great. Yes.
So that I have
since we have a large number of student base, the rank is quite.
The rank is quite predictable.
Quite reflective, yes.
Because in the last week I was really getting demotivated because there was so much subject to be revised, and I thought that I don't know anything.
Right.
But these ranks were what were giving me a push that maybe I was on a right track, and this night I need to speed up my.
So they give you a good confidence boost.
Exactly. Because they give the real time thing that maybe you are here, you can perform better, you can perform worse, but you are here at this point of time.
Right.
And you need to ensure that all the things are complete. Most of the things are complete. All can't be complete. That's the beauty of medicine, and especially the notes are complete, and you retain what you study.
That's very important. So that is why revision again.
Revision, and not just revision. proper revision. For example, you make mnemonics, make funny mnemonics which help you, but you make mnemonics so that you retain. I had made thousands of mnemonics because I couldn't rectify everything.
Okay.
And so, for example, there was Wilms tumor.
But sometimes you forget that this mnemonic was for what? If you make too many of them, I think.
So those mnemonics, the mnemonics should be very, concise. It should be, you have to solve that question in 30 seconds. You don't have 1 minute for that.
Yeah.
You need to have a balance in mnemonics also. So many mnemonics so that you don't get confused between the mnemonics themselves. So, but the point is you need to retain whatever way you want to retain
is works with you. So exactly.
Because I've seen people, I used to study whole books and give the exams, and one of my friends, he used a simple book and he gave the exam, and he scored more marks than me because he had more retentivity, because he focused on the points and he retained those points.
Yes.
So
again, more than vastness, it has to be retention. So there's no point reading 300% but retaining only 25. It's rather you read 100 and retain 75 out of it.
Exactly, ma'am.
Agreed. And finally, any piece of advice you want to give from your own side to people who are listening to you?
The only advice I would like to give is to surround with yourself with good people, to have faith in your family and with your companions, your reading room companions. Always stimulate them. Okay, the internship will be tough, the times will be tough, but it's your companionship and your stimulating nature which will boost each other up.
That's so true. It's very important to surround yourself with positivity. And especially in times of stress,
Exactly,
then you boost someone else and someone does that for you, and it's a vicious cycle. Right? Great. And what branch do you want to pursue, Bacha?
I'm still at Rhodes with what I want to do, but I think I'm inclined towards medicine.
Okay.
But one of my postings is still left, so I've kept that as an option, and let's decide after that.
Great, great. So I wish you all the very best, Ayush. I know that you will be a great doctor and you will do very well, right? So heartiest congratulations once again, and best wishes from the entire DAMS family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And at this point
he wants to say something. Yes.
At this point of time, I really want to thank some people in my life.
Please go ahead.
First of all, my parents, my teachers, the whole DAMS family, my MAMC people, the senior residents, the SRs, the PGs, my co-interns, and my reading room companions, and the whole staff of MAMC who has helped me in any way possible. Thank you so much.
That is so sweet. Thank you so much, Ayush. God bless you, Bacha.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello everyone, and I have Dr. Ayush Agarwal with us. He is a proud Damsonian and has secured Rank-3 in November AIIMS 2019. Heartiest congratulations, Ayush.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very, very, very well done. And kaisa lag raha hai?
It's a dream come true, and it's an unbelievable moment. I'm really thinking that the hard work has paid off, and paid off to such an extent I didn't even dreamt of. Yes, and
he's a very, very hardworking student. I have known him for a long time now. Ayush has been with us right from foundation years to TND, and now coming this far, I know he's worked really hard. Right, Ayush. So, सबसे पहले हम इससे शुरू करते हैं, Ayush, that AIIMS is an institute that everyone wants to get into, and top ranks. So, what do you think is the most important ingredient